Welcome back, everybody, to the Big Book Roundtable in the RICO 12 family of recovery resources. We are a resource to addicts of all varieties. We are a resource to anons of all varieties. We are a resource to anybody who is looking for a solution to whatever ails them in their lives as we go line by line through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm Justin B. I'm a son of an all-powerful, perfectly loving God and a addict living in the miracle of recovery one day at a time, according to the promises that are laid out in the Big Book. And I'm joined today by Nikki M. and David G., my panelists and co-friend and cohorts and friends around this roundtable. Nikki, why don't you say hi and introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, everybody. I'm Nikki M. I'm a grateful member of this beautiful program, many 12-step programs. I'm in Toronto, Canada. I entered the rooms actually through this exact subject that we're going to be addressing today through Al Anon. I came in 14 years ago to change the man I thought I loved. And actually, I was just blacked out in just alcoholism. And I've been reborn, and I'm just grateful to dive into this serious, precious work.
Thanks, Nikki. David, you're up.
Hey everybody, David Green. I'm an alcoholic addict of many sorts in Oklahoma in the USA. I'm a grateful recovered member of many fellowships. I've had that gift of recovery since August 8th of 1994, and I'm truly grateful for that miracle in my life. And that miracle hasn't only surrounded my life, it's touched the lives of many, and that's what we do here. So thank you, Justin. I'm very glad to be here.
And thank you, David. And I'm grateful that I'm in my 13th year in the rooms of recovery, and what a change, dramatic changes that practicing these principles in my life have made to me, my family, and honestly to the world around me. Not because of what I'm doing, but because of the way I see things. So it's like putting on a new pair of glasses. I think that's a line from the Big Book here. So, all right, we're going to continue this. As Nikki said, we're reading about the Anons. The Two Wives chapter is what it's called in the Big Book, chapter 8. We're picking up where we left off last time on page 111, the paragraph that begins with, "We know these suggestions are sometimes difficult," and we'll read through page 112 towards about halfway down. "Your husband may stop or moderate." And what we're doing is we're finishing up the section here that expands a little bit on the category one of alcoholics, and then we'll continue on from there in our next episodes. But let's get into reading here. Page 111. "We know these suggestions are sometimes difficult to follow, but you will save many a heartbreak if you can succeed in observing them. Your husband may come to appreciate your reasonableness and patience. This may lay the groundwork for a friendly talk about his alcoholic problem. Try to have him bring up the subject himself. Be sure you are not critical during such a discussion. Attempt instead to put yourself in his place. Let him see that you want to be helpful rather than critical. When a discussion does arise, you might suggest he read this book, or at least the chapter on alcoholism. Tell him that you have been worried, though perhaps needlessly. You think he ought to know the subject better, as everyone should have a clear understanding of the risk he takes if he drinks too much. Show him you have confidence in his power to stop or moderate. Say you do not want to be a wet blanket, that you only want him to take care of his health. Thus, you may succeed in interesting him in alcoholism. He probably has several alcoholics among his own acquaintances. You might suggest that you both take an interest in them. Drinkers like to help other drinkers. Your husband may be willing to talk to one of them. If this kind of approach does not catch your husband's interest, it may be best to drop the subject. But after a friendly talk, your husband will usually revive the topic himself. This may take patient waiting, but it will be worth it. Meanwhile, you might try to help the wife of another serious drinker. If you act upon these principles, your husband may stop or moderate. Man, if you listen to the previous episode, I talked a lot about my wife and our situation that happened. This is exactly that, but we're going to get to that here in a few minutes. Nikki, why don't you take us through line by line as we go through this?
Yeah, and I hope you'll change it up again this week and tell us a little bit about your experience, strength, and hope. And as you were reading, I'm like, I wonder how many times in Two Wives it says patience. This is all, again, we're reading about patience. So we know and these are all suggestions, everybody. You don't have to do it, but remember, if you're this far into the book with us or you're this far into this lifestyle, you're beyond human aid. So these suggestions are difficult to follow, but you will save many a heartbreak if you succeed in observing them. Meaning, remember, that's page 60. We're not saints, everybody. It's spiritual progress, not perfection. And I read this different, and David will read it how he reads it, but I like to read it like this. You may come to appreciate your reasonableness and patience. See, I have, and I smiled when you were reading it, Justin, because I'm sitting here and I have come to appreciate my reasonableness and my patience. My mother lives in my home. My boyfriend is here as we're going to travel. And I never thought that I could get to that point where I could just be at peace and ease, no hard feelings, no resentments, and we're just all here in the house having a good time. See, I appreciate it. I can see the change in me. See, I've laid the groundwork for a friendly talk with anybody about their problems. Why? I do this living. I live this way of life, attraction, not promotion. See, I have people bring up the subject because I speak in I statements, and I do. I'm a little bit more open about 12 steps. A lot of people can't be, and that's okay. But I do speak about my problems, and so people tend to bring up their problems themselves. And I'm not critical. See, everyone's like, this is about discussing alcohol. No, this is about a life instruction book. You are not to be critical during any discussions. You're always to put yourself in everyone's place. I mean, our friend is indigenous, David G. And I know it says like, until you walk a mile in someone's moccasins, I'm always like, walk a mile in my 6-inch stilettos and then let's talk. Okay, everybody? Let people see that you, Nikki, want to be helpful rather than critical. And I think, Justin, I've got my big Monday morning meeting on Zoom, and people do see that I want to be helpful rather than critical. And that's why we have over 100 people every Monday morning on my Zoom meeting. So when a discussion does arise about alcoholism, and people call me a lot, Nikki, my partner's in alcohol. What do I say? My son's drinking. What I suggest is give them a book and page 112, read this book. Now, I always take a lot of people here when they come at me, my sponsees, Nikki, I have this problem, Nikki, and I say, stop right there. Page 112. I've read this book. I've read this book. I'm armed with the facts. I know what's wrong with you. I know what's wrong with me. I know what's wrong with you, all people with alcoholism, because I'm armed with the facts. Tell people I've been worried. Tell the person, tell my sponsee, even if it's not needlessly. To be honest, I don't do that because worrying is a sin and I have a powerful God. So let me just disregard that whole sentence. You think he ought to know the subject better. And that's why I always say, here's a big book. My home group, we give free big books out. I've heard people say, well, if you really want a book, you'll come back and you'll no, get the book in their hand. Get the book in their hand. I don't care if we're just wasting money. Everybody needs a big book so they have a clear understanding of the risk of alcoholism. If they drink, if they sleep, if they eat, if they gamble too much, you have to show people. Okay, show the person you have confidence in them. That's what I am. We're cheerleaders here. And I was a cheerleader in Anaheim, California. I still have my Letterman's jacket upstairs, Justin. Savannah High School, Anaheim. And, and I just encourage people, please take care of yourself. That's what I did with my mom. I just kept arming her with the facts about this disease, how her husbands are dead, and then I'm interested in her living, and breaking free from this pattern. He probably has several, yeah, Al-Anons, you have several alcoholics, addicts that right? And you can help them. Just get out there. Be willing to talk to people. You know, Don't be codependent about it, is my line out though. If this kind of approach doesn't catch your people's interest, drop the subject. When my daughter was down getting into her eating addiction, nope. Mind your business, Nikki. You brought up the subject. She doesn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to push her further away, and I left it. I was patient. And then what? A year later, she's like, "Mom, why didn't you lock me up in a pig pen?" And I said, "I tried, but you wouldn't speak to me." And we laughed. Okay? This is what this program can do. A friendly talk. There it is. Drop the subject. Friendly talk. Patient waiting. It will be worth it. I have that in pink. It will be worth it. That's a promise. Meanwhile, just help someone else. Help someone else. Attraction, not promotion. If you act upon these principles and take care of yourself, right? Everyone around you will want what you have and will want to stop their crazy thinking, moderate their behavior, and follow along with you. It's a good time, Justin.
Mm. Thank you, Nikki, and thanks for walking through that. I love some of those insights. David, why don't you take us through and share some of your experience, strength, and hope with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much, Nikki, for your share. I love to hear you. You know, my wife's bouncing in and out, mopping, doing what wives do. And we laughed at your guacamole and my stiletto. So thank you for giving us a laugh. We appreciate it. We know these suggestions are sometimes difficult. I would absolutely say that they are, because before recovery, before the 12 steps, and even during and even some after, if you get in my face, you know, the chances of me being patient and loving and telling you just sit down and be good, that's kind of slim to none. I have to really, really be spiritually awake in order to do that. And, you know, it's difficult sometimes, I understand. But at the same time, what I've learned is what the next sentence says: you will save many heartbreaks if you can succeed in observing them. There's so many times that I have wanted to pounce, you know, and my wife would talk me down off the ledge, you know, just pounce somebody. And because of the way they behaved or acted, she, we had a really big scare with her a few months ago. She had some super high blood pressure, and it was almost to the point of stroke level, and it really scared us. So we took her to the ER, and they did what they did, and they sent her home. And the next day, I mean, it was getting worse, not better. And so, you know, I took her back again, and they sent another doctor in, and he was just really an ass. He was being an ass, you know. Well, you know, we told you what to do. You don't need to be afraid of this. And I just said, you know, it depends on where you're setting it. Man, he really came at me. And when he did, you know, luckily I didn't just beat his ass like I would have and went to jail, you know, in earlier days. You know, I was very firm in my conversation with him, looked him in his eye, talked to him, you know, like a man. And, you know, I don't know. For a long time, I felt kind of weak because I didn't do that, but because I didn't do what I wanted to do. But really, that it was the strength, and so I took the necessary steps. I reported him to the medical board and just took it from there. But anyway, you know, I succeeded in a whole lot of heartbreak because she was heartbroken over the deal. She did not want me to do, not because of what he did, but because of what I was wanting to do. And so, you know, you can succeed in observing them if it. And there's where the pause is so powerful for me. If I can just pause in that moment for just a minute and say, God help, then I'm going to succeed in observing these things. And so it says, your husband, you know, may come to appreciate your reasonableness and your patience. And I definitely have with her. It's been a beautiful practice to be able to see her reasonable in her patience. In fact, a lot of it has rubbed off on me in the last couple of years, probably. So it says this may lay the groundwork for a friendly talk about his alcoholic problem. And, you know, his alcoholic problem doesn't always have to do with him drinking alcohol. I have a lot of problems that were caused by alcohol, but I have a hell of a lot of problems that are caused by alcoholism. And so for her to have a friendly talk with me about those problems and try to get me to see reason, and she doesn't judge. I mean, it's amazing that, you know, when I read this chapter in depth, I see that she is practicing every damn thing that I'm reading here. And I know she hasn't read the chapter in a long time. I know, like your wife, Justin. And so try to have him bring up the subject himself. She tries to get me to shy away from it. So be sure you're not critical during a discussion. And I can absolutely say with her, she's not. And a lot of times she'll say, David, do what you want to do because you're going to do it anyway. But here's my idea on that. And usually I'm pretty good to listen to that idea today. I really do listen to the voice of reason. And that's her. All of our kids and grandkids will tell you the same. If they got a problem, and they know what I'm going to do if they come to me. They don't come to me; they go to her, and then she comes to me. And but remember, we talked in the last episode about the 6 principles of success, and we looked at 4 of them. Here's number 5: let him see that you want to be helpful rather than critical. Man, what a principle of success right there! If you can show me that, not only tell me that, but show me that, help me to see that that's what I want, then man, what a different outlook that takes. When discussion does arise, you may be having to read the book or at least the chapter on alcoholism. Remember, that's chapter 3, more about alcoholism in our book. And so tell him you've been worried, perhaps though needlessly. You can see why it was Bill that wrote the chapter. You can tell by the wording. Had it been a woman that wrote this chapter, it would have been different wording here. But he's going to really pound in how to try to help the alcoholic. And that's the reason he wrote the chapter. You think he ought to know the subject better. I mean, basically what he's trying to tell you to do is save yourself from being angry, save yourself from wearing yourself out, trying to fix him, because it's just not going to happen. Principle number 6, show him you have confidence in his power to stop or moderate. My God, if you can show me that and get me to understand that, and I accept that, I promise you, I'm on my way to something, whether I know it or I don't. Say you don't want to be a wet blanket, a nag. In other words, trying to play God like we looked at in the last chapter or last paragraphs, that you only want him to take care of his health. You know, I hear that a lot in my home. David, you need to take care of yourself. David, you're close to being a diabetic. You really need to take care of your health. You know, your leg is now, in the air, elevated. It says, thus you may succeed in interest in him and alcoholism. So, and here it is right here. He probably has several alcoholics among his own acquaintances. You might suggest that you both take an interest in them. That is the reason that Bill wrote the chapter. He wanted to just really pound in. This is how you help the alcoholic. This is how you help the addict. Show him that you're interested in helping him. And the way to do that is to try to help other drinkers. Because if you do that, I promise you, in anyone's experience that's sitting here around this table or the people I know that have recovered, when you do that, you don't think about yourself and your problems so much. You have your attention turned somewhere else, and that's where God can do his work and has done his work in my life. Your husband may be willing to talk to one of them, and he may be. It's easier for me to talk to one of them than it was to her in the early days. But if this kind of approach does not catch your husband's interest, it may be best to drop the subject after a friendly talk. That is sometimes hard to do because you might feel like you're gaining ground and then you fall back. It's like, oh man, there he is. He's went back to drinking again or whatever it is. And so your husband will usually revive the topic himself. And I think that's what Justin said he had done, in his, and it's exactly what I did too. I was put into a place to where I really had no other choice. Well, I did have another choice, but it wasn't one I wanted. I can promise you that. So, meanwhile, and here it is again, try to help the wife of another serious drinker. If you can do that, I promise you, your troubles will take care of themselves, because that is the greatest gift that we have, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps we try to carry this message to others and practice the principles. And so we've looked at 6 ways to practice the principles. We're going to look at a whole lot more as we move through this chapter and in the other chapters to come, because remember, these back chapters are how to live life after the spiritual experience has occurred. In chapter 7, we should have had a spiritual experience by that point. Now, how do I live? Well, here it is. The wives, the family, the employer, and a vision for you. This will definitely show us all of the things that we need to do to be successful. And this has already pointed out a lot of them. So if you act upon these principles, then your husband may stop or moderate, or hell, in my case and many others, even recover. A better deal. Thank you.
Uh, that's cool. And as you're reading the names of those chapters, we got, and we go back to the places where we live our recovery. We've talked about this, in our homes, in our occupations, and in our affairs. We got our homes with the wives and the family. We've got our occupation with our employer, and in all our affairs and working with others, and a vision for you. Um, that's really cool to see that. Now, I want to share just really quick my experience with this. Like I did this last time. My amazing wife Heather, so patient, and just went in and thinking she was going to fix me, but found healing for herself, and eventually that bled over to us. And I think it's because she practiced these principles, whether she knew them stated like this or not, is beside the point. But she would constantly show me that she had confidence in my power or in the ability that someday I would stop or moderate. She would constantly just kind of be a little bit of a cheerleader. Now, it wasn't a rah rah, it was more of a, hey, you can do this. And I know how you can do this, but you've got to figure that out. And but where I really had the biggest where the influence was the strongest was she would come home from her meetings that she'd attend regularly, and initially she would just start telling me, "Hey, this is what I learned today. This is what I understood today. Here are some things that I'm doing right now in my own recovery." And for a while I thought, okay, whatever. And then she kind of stopped doing that. She still went to the meetings, but she stopped telling me what she was learning, and it opened it up for me to ask her, "So tell me what you learned today." Now, here's how big a jerk I am. When I'm in the disease, I learned from what she was teaching me, what she was learning, and then when I thought she was quote unquote taking my inventory, I'd say, "Oh, there you go, taking my inventory again," and I'd just turn it on her, being a jerk like that, and but that's that. But the next thing that was so powerful for me was that meanwhile, you might try to help the wife of another serious drinker. She's going out and she was sponsoring other women. And we'd be out in the community wherever we were, whether it's, the grocery store, at church, whatever. And there'd be some woman come up to her that I was like, "Okay, how do you know this girl?" And this woman would just give her a hug with almost tears in her eyes and be so grateful. And afterwards I say, "I assume this is somebody you know or work with." And she's like, "Anonymity." you know so just grateful for her practicing these principles, because like I said in this last episode, eventually it led me to going, "Okay, I need what you have, because what I'm doing isn't working." And here we are 13 years later, and it's a beautiful thing. So Nikki, why don't you share any final thoughts or any insights into what we've talked about here, and then we'll go to David.
Again, like last week, it's pure miracles, and I love what the exercise. David always takes us through fabulous exercises, and it just trickles down to all our sponsees and grand sponsees. So it's true, if you act upon these principles. And what principles did Davis take us to? It's like that you should never be angry, that you should never tell anyone, not just your husband. Stop telling your government, Nikki, what to do, or you'd be prime minister. I need to not spoil my relationships with anyone. I need to be determined. I need to remember that I have a full and useful life no matter what is going on in the world. I need to be helpful rather than critical to everyone. And I really need to practice that with my neighbors. This is just remembering and reminding me what I need to do all the time. And then of course what David showed me here, which is show confidence, in everybody. We do it with babies. You guys do it with your grandbabies. You can do it. Get up and walk again. I need a grandbaby. Um, you show your confidence in all the little people. Let's show them in all people. And again, I have circled like patient, and I love that. It will be worth it. It's worth it. Because, well, I won't end with your saying because you're worth it. But yeah, it's worth it, isn't it? So great. I'm high on God dope. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Nikki. It is worth it. David, what are your thoughts as we come close to wrapping this one up?
Well, thank you so much, Nikki, for your share, and Justin for your service and your experience, strength, and hope as well. Nikki, I just want to wish you a fabulous time in your on your vacation, and yeah, I just love those. I just love those times. A couple of weeks ago, my wife and I took a train ride of all things, and I'm in a boot. I'm barely getting around. This is before surgery, and I'm limping and I'm hobbling, but we take a train ride through the Ozark Mountains, and it was just a beautiful time. We had a great lunch, and today we just love life and we enjoy the good things. And but guys, it wasn't always that way. There was a lot of tears, there was a lot of heartbreaks, and my elder always says this. He says, God, thank you today that I get to laugh, but please don't let me ever forget the days that I cried. And I just always want to remember that after I was discovered and all the things come out. My wife went back to the rooms of Al-Anon as well. She wouldn't go back to AA anymore because I had I'd acted out with some people there that she knew that was very close to her, and some of them that she even sponsored. So she had a bad taste in her mouth for the fellowship with all women, and it took a long time for her to get on the other side of that. Today, I can tell you she just loves Nikki M. She loves Lee W. She loves Teresa J. from Tulsa, Oklahoma. She has a few women in her circle that she absolutely trusts. And I know that she sits in on a lot of these meetings with me. There was a time that she wouldn't do that at all. But she is going back through the Big Book Awakening process, with some people from San Diego. She is ingrained in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous again, and she already had a lot of experience with Big Book recovery. But I'm telling you, just to see her come back and be willing to do that again after all the heartbreak she suffered is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So, the miracles are still among us, and we are all definitely one, and so are others. So, guys, if you're struggling, I know not everybody's in the place that we all are. Let us love on you. Let us help you. Let us pray for you. Let us show you what we've done. Try it. And if you fail, don't feel like a failure. Get up and go again. Get up and go again. That's what we have to do. So, anyway, those are my thoughts, Justin. Thank you again today.
Yeah, thank you, David. Thank you, Nikki. So, you out there in the listening audience, whether you're about ready to get on a plane to go to the Caribbean, you're getting on a train to go through the Ozarks, you're sitting in your front office looking out your window at spring blossoms, or if it's just a dreary, lousy, awful time, difficult time, get in and work these principles. It will accentuate, it will improve, it will uh, save your life. I know that from my own experience, strength, and hope. And guys, as Nikki said, and as I usually close this out, getting into this work is absolutely worth it. And you are worth doing this work, so keep at it. We'll see you all soon.